To say that 3 million people in your community, that's unheard of. That's ridiculous. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's been crazy. We had in April we had 30,000 players, and now we're 30,000 daily active users, and we're around 2.5 million. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot, for sure.
Wow, that's wild, man. You and I spoke a bit before. I'm a big Axie supporter. Just personal disclosure, not financial advice. AXS and Axie Infinity were one of my first big bags in crypto, if you would. I saw what they were building, and I really believed in the platform, and they've done a hell of a job. So kudos to you guys. I'm looking forward to everything to come. I think it's great. You guys are absolutely a leader in the play to earn space. What made
Thank
you
you.
want to start Axie Infinity? What started the revolution, if you will?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I've always been a gamer. I've always been a collector. I've always been interested in history, like military and economic history. So I was never interested in Bitcoin. People were trying to get me into Bitcoin since 2011. I was never interested in Bitcoin when it was, I don't know, just about finance and money and trying to make money and kind of speculation. I always thought that, hey, like, the miners had too much of an advantage over me in Bitcoin. Like, I didn't know how to mine. I just felt like it was something that me as a non-technical person, it wasn't very accessible. But that all changed when I learned about Ethereum. I learned about NFTs. So I was one of the early CryptoKitty community members, and I thought, hey, this is something that, to me as a gamer, as a collector, as someone who's actually interested in biology, this actually is something that I think, thrive in. So I thought NFTs were interesting. Obviously, CryptoKitties was the early proof of concept. I met Trung and Alexander, who are, Trung was the original founder of Axie Infinity. And Alexander, right, he was actually a mod in the CryptoKitties community. I met them through CryptoKitties, and then, a couple of months later, I stumbled upon Axie Infinity just as a community member, went in the Discord, and then kind of got reconnected with them. So yeah, like, I actually discovered Axie as a community member. I didn't actually start it myself. I just found it when it was super early. And like a lot of people, I bought 3 Axies. I was like, okay, like, what now? We couldn't do anything with the Axies back then. So it was like, okay, like, we need to build. Let's build together. I felt like there was a lot of work to be done. So I got to work, right? Like, I helped write the initial white paper, did a lot of community architecture and design. So I do a lot of stuff with the community and the economy still, growth. So yeah, that's really how I got into it. So I think, like, at the beginning of the NFT space, I mean, just like now, right? People after CryptoKitties kind of died, people were thinking, hey, like, right, like, what is next for NFTs? And like, a part of the answer, and I think there was a group of people that thought, right, like, gaming NFTs that you could actually use and have fun with, right? There would be some reason, right, not to just, like, sell them, right? Like, there has to be some emotional attachment to them. There has to be some utility, so people aren't just trying to flip them and sell them. And that's actually what makes it sustainable. So yeah, that's kind of like, I found Axie, and then a couple of months later, I'd moved to Vietnam. Basically, changed my entire life. Gave my dog away to my parents, and yeah, this everything's been different since then.
That's a hell of a story. Are you still in Vietnam?
I'm not in Vietnam right now. I actually got, like, locked out of the country during COVID. But yeah, I spent 2 years there, and it was amazing. I think that was, like, the golden age of living in Vietnam.
That's awesome, man.
What a fantastic story. And I think one of the things that's really incredible about this space is there's so many diverse people that come from different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, even just different talents and trades. But like DeFi and NFTs and crypto, it affords us this opportunity to live a life that I think a lot of us probably didn't think that we would be able to live. So thank you for sharing your story. That was really amazing. I just wanted to say, hey, David, I see you here, and wanted to make sure that you guys got acquainted, and we can officially kick this thing off now that our guest and all of our hosts are here.
What's going on, everybody? I'm sorry for being late, but I was trying to disconnect from the other space, and like they started booing me, so I had to jump onto this account. So uh, again, thank you so much for letting me be fashionably late.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. All right, guys, I will let you get back to it. Sorry, just wanted to throw in my 2 cents there.
Yeah, totally. So while we continue, we'll carry on. Obviously, you were speaking about Axies, Jiho, and how they have 6 body parts. What essentially inspired the artwork for the original Axies? Because I saw some trailers on Twitter mentioning that it's going to turn 3D, which looks real cool. What was the initial inspiration?
So yeah, so Masamune is one of the 2 original founders of Axie, along with Trung. So in the beginning, there was just an engineer and an artist. And so Masamune, he says that his inspiration for Axies were, it's like kind of a combination of axolotls. So he actually had an axolotl as a pet, as well as kind of like food art that you make as a child, right? Like some people, they make like shapes. I think like when he was a kid, he would, right, like turn his food into different creatures and stuff like that. So yeah, I think right, like Axies can have body parts from many different types of creatures, and I think I'd actually need to ask him about this. But like, right, like axolotls actually have they can regrow their limbs and stuff. So I think like the idea is that, right, like you could theoretically, right, like insert different genes from different animal species into an axolotl and have it grow like body parts from different animals into that axolotl. So I think like those were kind of like some of the inspiration. Obviously like CryptoKitties was a big inspiration too, right? Like they were like kind of a pioneer in the space. And right, like there are some like similarities, right, like with the genome, the breeding. So yeah, obviously, right, like things like One Piece, Pokemon, these are also big inspirations. Studio Ghibli, I think, is like a big inspiration on the aesthetic style as well.
I love that. I'm a huge Pokemon fan since I was a young little boy until now. I used to sit there with my Game Boy before they even had backlights, and I would play it under a lamp when I was a kid. And I still get around to it sometimes now. It's a guilty pleasure. I think a lot of people who grow up as a '90s baby, they fall to that, which is why I think Axie is so cool, because it's another. It's kind of like the modern Pokemon in the NFT world. I mean, you guys are definitely, I think, way farther ahead in play to earn than anything else to date. What sets Axie apart from other play to earn games?
So one point that I want to make is, right, you talked about this, right, like that nostalgia of being a kid playing Pokemon.
Totally.
And I think the elusive emotion that crypto is missing is love. And people love their Axies. That's why, right? Like Axies are really useful and people really love their Axies. That's why only 5% of Axies that exist are listed on the marketplace, right? It's that love that actually makes the economy sustainable. So yeah, I think, right, a lot of it has to do with art style. I'll also say, right, like what makes Axie unique is the resilience of the community, right? Like we've been building Axie since 2018. That's right. I guess it's 2022 now, right? So that's basically 4 years. Axie was by no means an overnight success. It seems like, right, like we just blew up, right? Like, and everything happened really quickly. But actually, we were rolling a boulder up a hill for 3 years in relative obscurity. Nobody cared about us. People were saying that Axie was dead. Axie was just a Pokemon clone. There was a lot of hate towards us, and people thought that we would be failures. People were making fun of us. So yeah, it's the resiliency of the community to just keep powering past that and to keep building, to keep the faith. I think that's also what sets Axie apart.
I love that. Great answer, man. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah,
I was getting a phone call there. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to say the community is, I mean, there's so many crypto projects and DeFi projects and gaming projects that are popping up, every day. It's so easy to create a token or whatnot. And, community, no question, is the backbone to anything. You can have an amazing product and you can put out great first to market, products and whatnot. But if you don't have a community to back you up, you're essentially nothing. It's products that fall on deaf ears. So, I love what you said about people are in love with their Axies. That's amazing. That's the biggest thing to me. I mean, I think that's what's going to continue to take Axie far, far down the road. So let's move on a little bit further to Ronin, because I know it's a big day for you. You launched the Ron token. I know that it was farmable and whatnot before, but do you want to just give a brief overview on Ronin and the network?
Sure. So Ronin is an NFT scaling solution. It's basically a suite of tools that make NFT games possible. It makes them cheap. It makes them fast, and they're battle tested. Right, like they helped before Ronin. Axie was really small. Once we deployed Ronin in April, it caused hypergrowth within the Axie community. So Ronin was built to enable hypergrowth for NFT gaming experiences, NFT experiences. Uh, yeah, it's an Ethereum, it's an EVM based blockchain. It's an Ethereum fork, and yeah, so we just launched the token today. The Ronin token secures the network. It decentralizes the network. You'll be able to stake it through different validators and earn fees. Those fees will be both from gas fees as well as from a variety of different DeFi protocols and applications that are built on top of Ronin as well. So, right, like the thing that's missing in the scaling solution space and these alternative layer ones is our applications with traction, right? Nobody has a user base of millions of people who know how to use a wallet, right? Who have gone through the steps, who have been onboarded into the ecosystem, except for us, right? Like we have the largest NFT gaming community. So if you're a game developer and you want to experiment in this new paradigm and you actually want to succeed, right? Like you have to come to Ronin, right? Because we actually have the users. Nobody else has the users that we do. We do more volume than all other NFT scaling solutions combined. 15% of all volume, and of all NFT volume in 2021 happened on Ronin, right? We have just as many NFT buyers on Ronin as all of Ethereum right now, and that's just from Axie Infinity. So yeah, it's really built to enable the next generation of NFT applications. And yeah, we think that really the sky's the limit. And yeah, today was a super exciting day for us.
That's so cool, man. Honestly, I love what you're doing. I love Ronin. I have a personal bias, by the way, guys, not financial advice, just because I've been deep in Axie for a while. But I mean, you can see that these guys are building. They have built and are continuing to build and innovate the play to earn space. And there's a lot of people from just what I see online and articles that I've read that this is their Axie is their job. It's how they make a living. It's provided financial. I don't want to say freedom, but it's provided another way for people to live their life and not have to worry about putting food on the table. And I think that's huge. So just to take that.
I wanted to add, can I add something on what you just said there?
Please, Brian. Yeah.
So one thing that Alexander went over whenever I interviewed him a couple months ago is that Axie is also providing not financial freedom, that might not be the best word, but is giving the opportunity for people in some third world countries or countries where it's just mainly impoverished and stuff like that. It's providing them with a source of income and a way to get out of the situation they are and provide for their family, which is insane. And I've never seen a crypto project do something like that. There's a lot that promises, there's a lot that donate and stuff like that, but I've never seen a project like Axie to where they actually do get people out of situations they are with the blockchain, with crypto, playing games and stuff. They forefronted the whole play to earn status. But my biggest thing about them is what they've done with what I just said, how they have absolutely just changed people's lives for people who would never, ever, ever have this opportunity before now, which is fucking awesome. But that goes to like the blockchain in general and see the power of what it can do. Like, who knows what's going to happen 5 years from now?
Totally. And that's what's crazy. I mean, 2021 was a year that changed a lot of people's lives. There were so many people onboarded into, cryptocurrency and DeFi last year. And, where everyone is a little upset right now because all the markets are crashing and whatnot. But I mean, the market is in a much different place now than it was last time the market crashed. I mean, there's so much more utility. There's so many more people involved, so many more projects building amazing things, amazing blockchains. I think the future is super bright for crypto. I mean, my personal opinion on it is there's no way that 2021 was the all-time high. There's no way. We're just getting started. I mean, there's less than 5% of people globally invested in crypto. So it's play to earn is a huge opportunity. There's tons of great opportunities out there, tons of great protocols building amazing things. So I look forward to the future of DeFi and crypto for sure. A question I wanted to ask Jiho, how important is promoting security in DeFi to your user base? Because you don't need a centralized exchange in order to integrate yourself into the Axie ecosystem. I mean, everything can be done on Uniswap or, even on the Ronin blockchain.
So one of the amazing things about Axie is, right, like if you believe that crypto is going to change the world, if you believe that NFTs are the future of gaming, then there's enormous opportunity right now, right? Aside from play to earn, right? There's enormous advantages to just learning how this stuff works, right? Like learning how to use a DEX, learning how to send tokens, how to download a wallet, right? Like performing all these on-chain actions, really taking control of your money, of your data, of your in-game assets, right? This isn't just about, right, like a game where you can potentially earn a little bit of money. This is really about learning a new technology and how to use it way before it blows up and right changes the history of the internet. So yes, so by basically playing Axie, you're getting all these life skills, all this education, right? Like people talk about scholars, right? Why did we choose? I actually coined the word or the term scholar uh, in the early days of Axie, where we were basically just giving out Axies for free. Like why? Why do we call it a scholarship? Because right, Axie is actually a school where you learn how to use the blockchain. And we think that's actually where a lot of the value, and I think this is underrated, that's where a lot of the value comes from when you're actually interacting and using our products.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I keep forgetting to unmute myself, and I always talk to myself. But yeah, that's huge, man. Education in DeFi, because there's tons of people who are jumping into the space every day. A lot of it is FOMO. It's a pretty popular term that we see around cryptocurrency. But education is key. Security and safety is key. I don't know if you know too much about Everise, but we're essentially a blockchain company. We're multi-chain now. We provide security solutions across Ethereum, Phantom, Avalanche, Polygon, and Binance Smart Chain. So we have DApps that one will lock a smart contract so that you don't have to renounce it. Renouncing is the worst thing that you could possibly do. Totally hinders growth. We have swaps, we have bridges, tons of stuff, and all of it is built around education. We put out tons of educational content, and it's one of the things that we love most. So I'm glad that you guys have the same thing. We should totally connect afterwards. I'm curious what you guys are doing education wise. We could, potentially do something together. I think it's great, and I love that you said that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, education is so important, right? Like the Axie community is full of amazing educators. Like I think Cuckoo, one of our amazing leaders within the community, he just put out a course too, right? So we literally have, right, like master class professors of blockchain, of NFTs in our community. And I think like in 20 years, that's what people will think about when they think about their Axie experience is like, hey, that's actually where I learned how to use the blockchain. That's actually how I think about StarCraft right now. Whereas, like, that's actually the first time that learned the power of the internet, right? So, yeah, we know that games are actually what drive mass adoption and are like the first useful and interesting use cases of new technologies. That was true with the internet, right? Like, I was playing StarCraft one, like not even Brood War, on through my AOL dial-up when I was 5 years old in 1997, 1996, or 1997, something like that, right? And that's like way before the internet actually got fun and useful. Like, I don't even think they had like AIM back then. So yeah, this is not unprecedented. This is just the way the world works. Yeah, I'm like 100% convinced that, yeah, like, gaming is going to be and is already what's getting everyday people into blockchain and educating them on why it's useful.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, gaming is such an easy tool to integrate anything. I mean, people start playing games, they have fun, they want to get deeper into it. I mean, I'm a gamer at heart. I mentioned that at the beginning. I was deep in Pokemon when I was a kid, and it just hasn't stopped. And honestly, when you're so immersed in something, you wanna learn more. You need to learn more. You need to learn the tricks. You need to learn walkthroughs, and then as Axie Infinity is a blockchain game. You start integrating yourself into the blockchain and learning different tools and providing yourself with knowledge and doing your own research. And it's just gaming is such a fun way to get involved. David, I know you like games.
I do. I wanted to ask, in terms of, and I don't really mean, like, I don't want to say competition, maybe the wrong word, but I'll use it. I'll go with it. Like, is it DeFi Kingdom, Gala Games? Who do you see as a healthy competition? I'll put that in.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw in the
Sure.
healthy.
I mean, so I think that we're still such an early stage. This is like, during the day, this is where like the Apples and the Microsofts of Web3 are being developed. And actually, Apple and Microsoft needed each other in the early years to survive. Like, they both stole ideas from each other and were able to grow kind of alongside each other, right? Like, Microsoft, kind of took the idea for the personal computer from Apple. Like, Apple actually like took some ideas from Microsoft, like including actually like the iPhone um, as well. So yeah, I think, like, right, like, basically competitors or like people building alongside you in the space, they actually just right, they're kind of like R&D departments, right, where they're doing research for you, you're taking some of their ideas, and then they're taking some of your ideas, you're mixing and matching. So yeah, like, I don't know, it's honestly like, I don't look in terms of competitors. Like, we have enemies, we definitely have enemies, but they're outside of the space, right? Like, they're like the traditional game developers that are spreading false lies about, like, the problems around NFTs. It's like the media that only focuses on like the earning aspect of this revolution without like focusing on the community and how fun these games are and how beautiful these games are. Right? We have plenty of enemies, but our enemies are not each other. They're not the game developers, right, that are building in NFT gaming right now. And I have to remind our community that, even my team members sometimes, to be honest, like, I have to remind them that because, yeah, the stakes are high, right? And sometimes we want to fight, but we need to remember that our enemies are, yeah, like the app stores, the game publishers, yeah, the people who don't understand this movement and will spread false lies about it. And those people are generally not, right, like the other NFT game developers.
So you would work essentially if DeFi games or Gala games. I'm just throwing out games out here. If they were to reach out to you, you guys would work together.
I would talk to. I mean, I have talked to like Gala Games, right? I talked to them like have before, right? And we were very friendly with each other, and and shared notes and stuff like that. Um, DeFi Kingdoms, I don't know. Like, I think they're like anonymous or something. Like, never, or actually, I don't know anything about the developers there. But yeah, you know, like definitely, right? Like there are many, there are like organizations too, like the Blockchain Game Alliance and stuff like that, where all the NFT game developers, blockchain game developers, right? Like we all hang out, talk to each other, and Telegram chats, and share ideas. So it is very collaborative, right? Like if you look at, to be honest, right? Like let's just talk in plain terms. If you look at the right metaverse, right? Like all the things on CoinGecko that are tagged metaverse, all the charts, they move together. Does that make sense? It's not like if we were actually competing, right? Like one would be rising and the other would be declining, right? It's actually not the case, right? Like all of this stuff, it moves in unison, in lockstep. Yeah, and it's even right, like it moves with like Roblox, right? Like Roblox, people are saying, oh, like right, like I don't know, NFTs went down, right? NFT coins, right? Like Axes, Sandbox, Mana, all went down 50%, 60% recently. So did Roblox, right? Like, so all this stuff is moving together because it is the future, and we're all gonna win or lose together.
I respect that. Honestly, I do respect that. I'm glad, the NFT space, the play to earn space. For me personally, like I like the community because there's really no. Uh, it's not like a Michael Jackson video. Like there's nobody taking out like a pocket knife trying to get at each other. It's like mostly like everybody's super chill and laid back. Unlike let's say obviously the crypto community where everybody's acting like they're a part of a sporting event. So I appreciate that answer. It's nice that everybody in this space works together.
What if we put
Also,
one of
like
our
what I'll say is,
winners right
I'm a very
here and
competitive
said like,
person.
"Hey, we got Gala games for you right now"? Would you
I'm like a
join them?
very I'm like a very competitive person. I'm almost like a combative person, but like there are much bigger enemies, right? Also, right, like Axie is right. Like there's in terms of competitors, right? Like are there other games out there in the space that have millions of users? Like no, right? Like if that's the case, which is the case, then why are we thinking about them? If not, right, to learn from them and like take some of their ideas from time to time, right? Like
Well,
there are
it's
much
a
bigger
Michael
fresh.
Phelps mentality. Like Michael Phelps swims. Michael Phelps never looks back. Like I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, one of the things that I always tell our community is right, like don't punch down, right? Like if we were to like fight with another NFT game, we would just be bullying them at this point, right? So it's like we need to look on to the much larger enemies.
Especially with the report that came out today from, well, not in full detail, but from the White House with an executive order coming out, that will essentially affect uh, NFTs and everything in the crypto space slash blockchain space. So, for sure, I would say there are bigger agendas out there than the ones that are in this space.
Definitely. So yeah, I also want the community to hear that because I know a lot of the community leaders are in here, and actually, like there have been like small little squabbles and right beef like between Axie community members, whatever. Like to me, like dude, like I just want to tell everybody like that's like childish stuff. We need to move on. Like we have such larger like enemies that we need to be banding together against. Yeah, I haven't really addressed that recently because yeah, it's natural, right? Like during a bear market or I guess like a declining market, right? People will have their own little qualms with each other and get cranky and kind of whine to each other. That's natural, right? But don't let it consume you. Like that will eat you alive. And bear markets or whatever you want to call it, right? This current hard time, this is a time for self improvement. It's not a time to be like arguing with each other and like fighting for fake clout. So
Totally, man. This is the time you build. This is the time that sets you apart from anyone else. It's who builds the most and who works the hardest and who can deliver the most when things are bad. When charts are green and the market's pumping and we're in a bull market, everyone loves each other. There's no issues. And then as soon as, a big whale sells off some Bitcoin and then the whole market goes south or there's some news from the feds or whatnot, everyone starts getting upset. There's a lot of people invested in crypto or NFTs that, it's a lot of money, and they put a lot of, because it's, you think things are going to go up forever, but you have to remember these are markets. Things happen, things fluctuate, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's super important to build in these times. So speaking of building, what is next for Axie?
So 2021 was a year of enabling infrastructure upgrades to get us to the next level, right? To make Axie a household name, at least within crypto.
You did that.
2022 is going to be a year of upgrading the game, making it more fun, making it more beautiful, right? To appeal to a totally new audience of gamers, right? So the next thing I guess that I'll say is on the menu is Axie Infinity Origin, right? So this will be our latest upgrade. It's kind of like our third upgrade, third iteration of our battle system. It's going to be the largest upgrade ever. Right, like the art will be totally revamped and more beautiful. The animations, the battles will be faster. They'll be more real time. There will be more variation in the teams. Each Axie, instead of only having 4 cards, will have 6 cards. And most importantly, everyone will be able to download Axie Infinity in the app stores. Get
That's
3
huge.
free starter Axies, right? Get 3 free starter Axies without having to spend any money. Fall in love with the game, learn how to play the game before having to make any big economic decisions, right? Even managers, right? Like people who are managing scholarships, they'll be able to basically pick from a pool of people who already know how to play the game, who've already, completed different kind of tutorials. I think it's going to be a huge it's going to be a huge shift for the entire mentality, right? How much easier it is to get into the game. It's going to be amazing. The other thing, right, is we're working on land game, right? So remember, I said that Axie isn't just one game. It's not just about the card battles. It's an entire universe of games. And we're also working on something that's kind of like a combination of Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, Clash of Clans, Rise of Kingdoms, right? Where you have land, you're harvesting resources on top of it, harvesting crops, building structures, fighting for control of territory, right? Like sending sending your Axies off into battle to fight for stuff. That is another thing that we're working on, and we hope to kind of like show more of our progress on that as well to the community this year. And then another thing is going on. We also just released our Axie Builders program, right? So our long-term vision is that Sky Mavis is never going to be able to build all of the experiences needed to satisfy a community of hundreds of millions of people. So what we need to do is get the best community developers, third-party developers into our ecosystem, right? Give them the ability to work with our art, work with the assets, and build stuff on top of the Axie universe, right? And that's actually how we get like a hyper scalable gaming ecosystem, right? Where we don't have to do all the work. Like if Axie relies on Sky Mavis indefinitely, then we're gonna fail. And that's actually how we've gotten to this point already, right? Like the community does all the marketing. It's 80% of the marketing for us, right? Where 80% of all users come from referrals. But we need to take that same concept and apply that as well to the development. It takes a little bit more time to do that. So, I would say that's right. Like that, those are kind of the most important themes of 2022.
That's massive, man. That's like a bug bounty, but a fun bounty instead. I love that. And I didn't know that 80% of your users came from referrals. That's huge. I want to talk or ask, I guess, about the App Store thing. Two-part question, I guess. Number one, do you do you think you're going to run into issues with the App Stores because it's a blockchain-based game? I don't know how it's been for you in the past. I'm a Bored Ape holder, and they just released a game for Bored Ape holders, and they ran into tons of issues. I don't know what happened on the back end, but I know are you on the App Store already?
Yeah, this is a crazy thing, right? Is Axie has gotten to 2.5 million daily active users without being on app stores. I mean, we even created our own. Distribution channel, right, called Mavis Hub, right, which is basically on desktop, right? It's kind of like Steam for NFTs, NFT gaming. But yeah, like we think it's doable, right? Like we believe that we'll be on the app stores and that there are ways to make it work. So.
Everyone always needs a new game on their phone. That's the one thing I
That's
can
one
tell
of the
you.
key things about Axie, right? That's one of the key things about Axie is that it's mobile friendly. Like people are spending more and more time on their phones, right? Like the trend is actually away from computers. Like computers, right? That's kind of like ancient technology, right? Like I like yeah, like phones I think are people are spending more and more time on their phones, and if you could, right, like if you could play a game, socialize, right? Like uh, make friends, start a business, everything from, right, like hold your money, swap your money, all from a phone, right? Like yeah, I'm super bullish on, right, like crypto becoming mobile friendly. And also there are places in the world where, right, like everyone has a mobile phone, everyone has data and internet access, but they don't have desktops. I mean, that's the thing, right, like that we've seen in the Philippines, right? Like there are people, right, like the famous pictures of like villages of people holding up their phones playing Axie, right? It's not about the computer.
I was
That's
just about to
huge.
say the same thing. I'd say, not everybody has a desktop. I mean, I didn't even get my first laptop until I went to college, and then for probably until I was 27 is when I bought my own computer. And I never needed a laptop until then, and no one really needs it because everyone has a phone now. And like you just said, everyone, no matter where you are, you can get a cell signal, you can get some sort of signal, and it's all mobile friendly. And you have to utilize to be mobile friendly, and that's awesome that you guys are doing that. And it's great that you're putting a lot of priority in that, because you're going to take over the space if you do.
Not to mention the 3 free Axies and the whole new ecosystem you're going to have. I mean, that just opens the floodgates to tons of new users who are just going to get, they're going to fall in love with
Oh
the
yeah.
ecosystem that you built, which is huge.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean,
amazing. Like, I've been
I
priced
talked to
out
one
of
of
it
the
before.
I talked to one of the early like product managers at Riot today, and he basically said, yeah, like just increase the top of the funnel as much as possible. Like expose as many people to Axie as possible. Build towards that because Axie is lovable. People love Axie. Axie is an amazing game, right? Like so, if you just if we just get people through the door, they're going to fall in love with it. A lot of them are going to get into this ecosystem and start spending for fun, which is actually what like sustains the economy, right? Like this is a point that I have to make like more more often these days, right? Because people for during the entire hype cycle, right, they focused a lot on, okay, people can earn a living playing this game, right? What ultimately makes it sustainable is when people spend for fun, for utility within the ecosystem. And the good news is that, right, Axies are beautiful. People love Axies, and right, like the roadmap for unlocking more of that emotion, more of that spending, is crystal clear for us.
Yeah, I just Googled while you were saying that. I Googled Supercell's net annual. What's the word? What did I type? Annual profit. And if you don't know, Supercell is a mobile game company. They make Clash of Clans, Clash Royale. They're probably the biggest out there. They're making $2.5 billion on in-app purchases a year, and and you don't earn money. You can't earn money playing these games.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean the thing is, right, like what is the problem, right? Like the problem is that gamers spend $180 million a year on stuff that they don't own, right? But we actually know what could happen if people actually own their things. Why? Because you actually own your Pokemon cards in a way that you don't own your digital items, right? So Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards, these are actually, right, like we're just giving properties of physical collectibles and physical kind of game items to digital game items where you actually own them and there's a secondary market, right? Like people will spend $50,000 on a Charizard, right? Just because they need it, but because there is liquidity, right? That justifies the spending, right? So I think like that is the future. That is the archetype of person that's going to make this and make these digital economies work.
No question. That is the most bullish thing I've ever heard. I never even thought about, or I didn't know about the expansion to mobile. But I mean, just thinking of the possibilities of how many people are going to be onboarded, not only to your ecosystem, but that's going to be a gateway to cryptocurrency as a whole. I mean, once they start learning blockchain and claiming their prizes, or wanting to upgrade their Axies, they're going to need to use the blockchain, I'm assuming, and it's just going to. I think the user base, based on that alone, if the game does well, which I'm sure it will, is going to be astronomical for crypto growth. That's huge. Good on you, Brian. You agree with me?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. That's yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, like this whole time. I mean, it's yeah, there's really nothing even to add to that. I mean, it's 100%. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's seriously going to scale up the adoption of cryptocurrency.
I mean,
And
that's the path forward, right? That's the path forward. This is gonna be a hard journey, right? Like, I really, like, there are gonna be risks. It's gonna be super hard, but the path forward, I think, is crystal clear. We just need to deliver on the roadmap. We just need to stay united as a community. We can't fight over random stuff. We need to stay focused with our eyes on the prize. Everyone, right? Like, I played football growing up. The Axie community is a team. Everyone has a role. Everyone has something that they can do to help the game succeed. It's the first game, it's the first system I've ever encountered like that. Right? Like, wherever it's like almost like a football team, right? Why do I use the term football? Because football is like the only game where if you, right, like if you step to the wrong side, like the person next to you is going to get blown up. Like, that's also the dynamic in the Axie community, right? Everyone has a role that they need to fulfill, and if they do that, everyone is going to win alongside them.
no question, the power is with the community, and no matter what the project or protocol or company or team, it's always about working together. And it sounds by what you're saying that the Axie community is super tight knit. I love that. Proud of you guys. With that said, for the last 10 minutes, I figured we could open the floor to some questions from the community. So, Jen, I'll need you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I got you.
Awesome.
Brian Litton, the floor is yours. How's it going, Brian?
Hey, Brian.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Great, thanks. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, did you have a question for Jiho?
Yeah, trying to figure out how to frame it. But yeah, so my brother and I run a guild. We have about 60 scholars, and was curious on one of the big things for me is I'm super into blockchain gaming, super pumped about the future. One of the big things for me is the sustainable of the economy of blockchain gaming. So in this case, obviously Axie Infinity. I was curious, Jihoz, if you guys have had like an economist on your team. Are you hiring an economist? And what your plans are for Axie sinks moving forward, essentially, and sustainability in the Axie economy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the good news, right? Like, so yeah, we have an economics team. We just made some key hires that are going to really help out with the economy. That, to be honest, the game economists or the economists, they come to us when they're writing their PhDs or their master's theses, right? Because a lot of this stuff has never been done before. So I think like we are the experts in many cases, for better or for worse, on a lot of this stuff. But the good news is also that, right, like a lot of these digital economies, in-game economies, have also been running for a long time. So there are, right, like there are so many examples of resource sinks that we can look at to see, right, like what do people actually want to spend their hard-earned in-game resources on, right? So a lot of that is okay, like things like part upgrades, cosmetics, emojis, right? Like you just look at like how do these games make money? How do they encourage spending? And a lot of that, can be applied to Axie, right? So yeah, I think it just takes some time to build those features. In the beginning, we chose to prioritize growth. Why? Well, one of the reasons is, does it make sense to start allowing, right, like a community of 5,000 people, even 500 people, to start upgrading their Axies before the game is like fully rolled out? And then you have all these people who come in and say, like these other people, they started the game way before us. They were able to upgrade their stuff, right? They feel there's like this sense that they missed out, right? So I think it's much healthier for us to have prioritized growth in the beginning over some of these other economic sinks, and then apply the economic sinks, right? Like once we have a player base of millions of people, once the product is ready for prime time, right? So yeah, so so basically the answer is, right, like things like Axie part upgrades, being able to add like modifiers like runes and charms and things like that to your Axies, right? These are things that have clear precedent in other game economies where people are, right, spending resources, right? Like I mean, in World of Warcraft, gold actually did have, right, like a black market or a gray market value, yet people still spent their gold on a bunch of different stuff, right? Same thing with RuneScape. So yeah, same thing with Neopets, right? So we do have a lot of predecessors that we can draw on for inspiration when we're designing these things.
Got it. Okay. So essentially, it sounds like the team that you guys have currently is kind of handling the economics. Yeah, I guess I'm just curious because it seems like obviously SLP has been, there's obviously it's pretty inflationary. Axies were 100% inflationary up until the recent release of the Axie Sync. And I guess, and I know that the team has communicated, which to some degree makes sense, that you want enough Axies so that new people can come in. But the way I look at it, and this might be wrong, but is if you release an Axie Sync, you allow for a more sustainable economy, which can balance itself out over time. And you don't have this like rampant inflation in Axies, right?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the so like the blessing and the curse of SLP is that, right, it was able to auto scale as we went through exponential growth, but it didn't auto descale as growth slowed, right? So the next steps are around, right, like basically getting SLP, for example, mint and burn, kind of like relatively in line with each other, right? So there are two paths, there are two ways to do that. And I think like the final, what we need to do is actually, right, like actually both, where, right, like you're lowering issuance and also increasing burn, right? So lowering issuance, things like, right, getting rid of the SLP from adventure mode and the daily quest, but then also, yeah, of course, like adding in syncs like cosmetics, uh, part upgrades, emojis, stickers, maybe even Axie pets, things like that, as well, right? So it's a dual process. The thing is that, right, like with Origin coming, right, like does it make sense to add? It didn't make sense to basically add a lot of these additional burn mechanisms to the current game. So we're in right now. We're in a little bit of an awkward phase, right? We're waiting for Origin, and right, like the mint to burn ratio is definitely right out of control. Where there's like 4x more SLP being minted per day than being burned. So yeah, that's basically how we're thinking about it.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for adjusting that. Yeah. Super bullish in the team. Believe in the future. Definitely think economic sustainability is of pretty important for the Axie success moving forward. But it sounds like you guys are definitely thinking about that. So yeah, super pumped to see what we get in the future. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And yeah, good luck to your guild, your scholars, your 60 scholars, sending them strength.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for your question. I see we have Nino. Floor is now yours. Hey there. How's it going?
I'm just sitting back and just. Oh, you talking to me or?
I'm talking to the person we just brought up. But David, while I
Okay.
bring someone else up, why don't you tell me how you're doing? And if you have any questions for Jiho.
I mean, I'm
A
just
little
listening.
stage
You
fright.
like so, even the questions that I wanted to ask, he's already answered. So I mean, like for me personally, play to earn is the future, and I'm just enjoying the session. It's like the one time that I don't like. I'm talkative, but I don't want to talk because I just want to go ahead and listen, especially like about the future of your platform. Like I'm waiting for somebody to ask that, but like the future, like your personal roadmap, like what you're thinking about, how you going to take it to the next level and keep it fresh.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a lot of it is around upgrading the gameplay, making it more fun, making it more beautiful, right? Like one of the ways to look at Axie is right, their collectibles, their art, and their game characters, all kind of all wrapped in one. So I think like part of it is just elevating that, making sure that right, like we really put the infinity in Axie Infinity, where right there's a ton of different things and experiences that you can access with your Axies, right? Like each Axie is a ticket to a world full of experiences, right? If you look at Axie as a theme park, right? Like what is the cost, and how do you make the cost of 3 Axies it's like sustainable, right? Like part of it is just like adding more fun, adding more utility, more rides into that theme park. So building stuff ourselves alongside the community, but then another aspect of it is right, like really enabling the community to build alongside us. That's right, like what the builders program was. And then yeah, like in terms of Ronin, right? Like what we want to do is like we look at Steam a lot. In the early days of Steam, it was a very manual process, right? Where you had to right, like work closely with Steam to kind of get integrated and to get listed on Steam. But then over time, it got opened up. So that's the path forward that we see for Ronin as well. The cool thing too is that right, like because we have the blockchain payments aspect, right, like your Ronin wallet, right, that can be something like your Google Pay, right, where you can in the future you should be able to log in to e-commerce platforms with your Ronin wallet and pay for goods and services straight from your Ronin wallet using in-game currency that you earned by playing Axie Infinity.
Yes, I wanted to add something.
Go for it, my man.
So, with everything coming up soon, with 2021 being one of our highest ever, what problems do you see coming next? Like, do you think, from a standpoint of the government, that they don't want people, how do I say it, like, necessarily making money off of games and not paying for it, taxes?
So yeah, this is a thing, right? Like where right like we've gotten to a point where we're super big and governments are starting to take, you know, look into it. Like, we've said that, right? Like if your government, like, requires that you pay taxes on, earnings from digital assets and this kind of stuff, then, right, like, yeah, we should make it super easy for you guys to pay your taxes, and we encourage you to pay your taxes, right? So, but yeah, it's not going to be easy, right? Like there are big enemies that are against this. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the problems and a lot of the challenges just come from within, right? Like, can we stay united as a community? Are we going to just fight each other? Right? Can we weather hard times? Um, so yeah, I think a lot of, all we can do is control, right, how hard we work, whether we stay united, whether we understand the vision. uh I think the only thing that we can do is worry about the things that we can control. So I think there's plenty to do when we think about that, and right, the other stuff, right, like, it's gonna come, and we have to be united against the enemies as they come against us. But there is a lot of work to be done, and just in terms of like building and creating an amazing community.
I really love that. As you mentioned before, I know one time you said it's a war against centralization and decentralization right now. So we just kind of have to endure it while we can, And I love that. Thank you, Jihoz.
Thanks, man.
All right. Jiho, do you mind if we take a couple more questions? We have 18 hands raised. I know we might not be able to get through all of them, but if you don't mind staying on for a couple more minutes, we can see how many we can bang through.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Donut, welcome on up. Mr. Donut, you might need to unmute your mic in the bottom left-hand corner there.
Hello, is my mic on now?
Yeah, it is.
All
there
right.
you go.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry. So, real quick question. With the recent release in RON or Roan, there's a few different ways of pronouncing it, I guess. But so is this something that will help address any of the, I guess, economical aspects of SLP? Because I can imagine when I was looking at the details of it, if you have, I think it was one Axie, you get 3 free transactions per day. But then there's a lot of scholars who don't actually have Axies in their accounts that they're receiving SLP in. But then, of course, they have the ability to swap that SLP and for RON that they may need in order to do transactions. So, yeah, I don't know if this was covered, but it was something I'm curious to know a little more about.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the awesome things, right, is that Ron, like, the only way to get it has been to actually farm it, right? And we had two pools, the Axis ETH pool and the SLP ETH pool. So, right, like, rather than having to sell your SLP, like, you could have just, right, sold half of it for ETH and then LP'd and earned some Ron tokens, right? So yeah, like, we believe in giving ownership of our products to our users, and yeah, I think there are around like 200,000 plus owners of the Ron token. A lot of them are, right, like, people from, who, like, might not even own Axies as well. So I think, yeah, I think that was definitely it's definitely helping the community. It's right, like, we also need to leave this framework of, right, like, the only way to earn an Axie is through SLP, right? Like, Axie is a platform where you're getting tons of value by earning a stake and part of the products that we release, right? So that was the whole motivation behind the SLP ETH pool. And right, like we just announced today that right, like we extended the rewards on that through the end of the year. So right, like yeah, it's not a it's not something that right on its own can totally balance the economy, but it helps, right? And imagine, right, like, right, the situation with SLP has not been amazing, I guess, to say the least recently. But imagine what would have happened if we had those levels of emission and these meant to burns, right? Like without that farming program, without that pool. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from the entire talk, it just sounds like, the economy, in order to be balanced, can't just have a few little cosmetic sinks like you're talking about. It feels like you actually need to make your own entire ecosystem out of the game. And I had spoken about this in another chat earlier yesterday, but I mean, and that's Ron is a part of that too, because if I'm not mistaken, with the builders program, it would use some of the functions of Ron as well, or possibly be built upon that net. I'm not entirely sure if I'm saying everything technically correct, but it would need to utilize that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the cool thing about the builders program, right? I think we said it in the document is that, right, like if you're building something on top of Axie, right, like 10% or so of the, of the purchases related to that experience, to that game, right, like should either be an Axis or an SLP. So yeah, the more stuff, bottom line, the more stuff that gets built on top of Axie, right, like the more sustainable the economy gets. And the good news is that yeah, there are a lot of amazing things that people want to build on top of Axie, and yeah, like there's this huge community that's super hungry for more experiences and more utility. So like a year ago, nobody cared about Axie. Now everyone is like super hungry and demanding more stuff. So it's not a bad place to be in.
Absolutely. And thanks for answering. I appreciate it.
Jiho, on that note, you said something that I just thought was really, really interesting. Um, you were talking about how Axie started in 2018 and now everyone's crazy about Axie. I just, out of curiosity for myself, because obviously there are a couple of other devs that are listening into this DeFi talks, but what would you say, as someone who's now been in the space for, like 4 years, is your advice for, staying motivated and keep going? Because 4 years in this space is like a decade. It's insane.
I think like just make friends. Like your friends are the ones that are gonna right. Like a lot of people in the Axie community, they stayed in crypto throughout the bear market. I think right, like because their friends were there. Their friends were their social kind of safety net. Because a lot of us, I'm sure, like, I hope this resonates with many of you. Is like, you guys, you might be the only person where you live that really knows or cares about crypto. So when things go bad, you might be the only person around you that's going through hard times, physically around you. But when you go into the Axie Discord, Axie community, there's this entire group of people that are sharing similar experiences to you. So yeah, I think like making friends, that's super important because right, like I know for me, right, like none of my friends understood what I was going through when right during the bear market of 2018 2019, but everyone in the Axie community did, right? So that's where lifelong friendships are made. And that's what I think kept a lot of people around is right those relationships. So yeah, it's really the social capital, it's the friendships, it's the love, right, that makes this thing work.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. All right, let's go ahead and bring up our next guest. Sorry, guys, Twitter Spaces is glitching out for me a bit. TJ, can you take over for a second? Let me see if I can fix this.
Yeah, there are like 1,400 people here, so it tends to get glitchy.
My
Twitter
phone is getting
Spaces
really hot.
loves Twitter Spaces loves to rug pull. It's a known thing. Yeah, I'm gonna bring up. I hope I say this right. Winson.eth. I believe it's Winson.
Hey, Jiho, nice to hear from you again, and congratulations on the very smooth release of Ron. That's incredible. We're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see how everything goes over the next little while. I was hoping maybe now that we've seen the emissions that the pools will have for the rest of the year, could you speak to the conversations maybe had internally around balancing? Because this is adding a lot of DeFi concepts to the Axie ecosystem that weren't there, the providing of liquidity, the staking potentially in the future as part of validators. What were the conversations in terms of having it be fairly distributed? Because you obviously want a token that's valuable, but you want the community to be able to use it. And were there any major changes made throughout that process that was sort of done as you were debating that? Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks, Winston. So right, so it's like it's a double-edged sword, right? Like you want to have some incentives, right, to incentivize liquidity, but right, you don't have an unlimited amount of money, right? So there were some back and forth on, right, like, okay, do we go with like much higher emissions, which might lead to higher inflation? So it really is, it's a balancing act where right, we looked at like what was a budget that we thought would be sustainable, in terms of the emissions for the rest of the year. What did we want to incentivize, right? Like Axis already has single-sided staking, so there is utility there already, and right, like through the treasury, right? So but like, yeah, like SLP, for example, right? It's the for now the main earnings token, right? So we wanted to make sure that, right, like the drop off in the rewards wasn't too drastic in that pool. And yes, same thing with Ron until we have like single sided Ron staking. And as we roll out the token, right, like we want to make sure that there's sufficient liquidity. So yeah, there was definitely some back and forth, right? Is it perfect? Like probably not. But yeah, like a lot of it was just making sure that, right, there's sufficient liquidity, there's sufficient incentives to continue supplying liquidity in those pools without, right, like inflating away the Ron token in its first year of life. Right, like utility for Ron will grow as more stuff gets built on Ronin. So yeah, like that, there's definitely a balancing act there.
Well, just an observation would be that a lot of the big players who are able to put large positions in, some which are probably from VCs, who are able to take that kind of position, means that a big chunk of the emissions ends up getting into the hands of certain whales who maybe have a long-term stake in and want to have a long-term stake in the success of Ronin and Sky Mavis. Is that a concern as well in just making sure that those people are aligned, because they have the ability to then put a lot of supply onto the market at any one time?
Sure. I mean, that's the thing about SLP, right? Is that as the majority of the SLP is owned in the user base, and the majority of the rewards, when it's all said and done, like more than half the rewards will have gone to the SLP pool. So it is a balancing act, right? Like you want to have, right, people, right, who have the capital to be long-term thinkers, but then you also want to fairly reward your player base. So it's incredibly complex. Is it perfect? No. But yeah, it's a balancing act between, right, like incentivizing large players, while also being fair to your user base. So
thanks, Gio. Always appreciate hearing your thoughts. Congrats on the launch.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. I just wanted to quickly introduce Logan, who is also from Benzinga and has just joined our spaces. Hey, Logan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks everyone for having me. Hope everyone's doing well. Jiho, I got a quick question for you. So I was talking with Quinn from your team. He hooked us up with some Axies to play with on our show at Benzinga, but I'm not quite sure how to get into the community or find out how to play the game and learn strategy, what would you recommend for someone new to Axie who wants to learn about it?
Yeah, definitely. So I would join the Discord and ask questions there. I would definitely go on YouTube. There are a bunch of awesome YouTube tutorials. People like Elijah, people like Cuckoo, Indez, Brycent, and many others are making, and people like Kmanu. It's more like Latam. Yeah, they're making amazing tutorial content as well. So it's not perfect. The onboarding is really hard, actually, which I think also makes it more impressive that we have millions of users. But yeah, our content creators do amazing work. So yeah, I would also follow them on Twitter. Some of them are even in this space. Definitely follow Cuckoo, which I see he's near the top of this thing. Also, Axie King Aruchan, Albert, he's doing amazing stuff. It's hard to actually name names because then I'll leave someone out. But yeah, we have a bunch of awesome YouTubers and Twitch streamers. I'd also it's so hard, right? I see others, right? Like Cloud White, Mixtape, they're also making amazing content. So yeah, I would say our content creators are kind of the backbone of our ecosystem, and there's a little bit of an art to figuring out who to follow and whose content to look at. But there's a lot out there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm gonna check it out.
Awesome. All right, guys. I think we'll take just about maybe 2 more questions, and then Jiho will let you close us out with a little bit more about where we can find Axie. I appreciate you staying late with us. I just know there's a lot of people here really excited to hear from you. DH, you are up next. You just have to unmute your mic in the bottom left-hand corner.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Loud and
We can hear
clear.
you.
Yep.
Perfect. So I did want to say thank you to everybody, Benzinga, Everrise, Axie being up here. I've been trying to get into the play to earn and the gaming aspect of crypto for a little while. I've been into Everrise for a long time. We've been only out for 7-8 months now. But learning about Axie is pretty exciting, and I'm actually really excited to see them onto the App Store and stuff. That would be pretty exciting. I did want to ask the one question. I know we just went with Everrise. We just went to the 2 new chains. Do we have more chains planned coming up, or what's on the roadmap there? Sorry, I don't want to hijack anything, but that was a curious question of mine.
For sure. So I'm actually going to let Waso, our director of business development, take that question.
Yeah, sure. I could take that. So yeah, as you know, we launched on Phantom and Avalanche earlier this week, bringing us to 5 chains. We made a commitment that we were going to take all of our dApps to as many chains as we can and try and protect investors. So we're thinking, we have Kronos, Solana, Cardano. Those are the next 4 chains that we have our eyes on. No solid commitment on when we'll expand to the next chain, but those are the next 4 that we have our eyes on. There's been some conversation about Harmony One, but no solid date on the next chain.
Awesome. Thanks, DH, for your question. Yo, you now have the floor. You might need to unmute your mic in the bottom left-hand corner. Hey, Yo, how's it going? Oh,
Yo.
I think someone's shy. I want to line up one more question for Jiho. Let's see. Let's try this. I'll bring up Santiago. I see your hand. Hey, Santiago, how's it going?
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Thank you for having this space. I actually got in late, and my questions is for Jiho. Hi, Jiho. Nice to meet you. And it's
Nice to meet you, man.
pretty straightforward. I want to know if SLP can ever go back to.
Am I stuck in a blockchain or?
Oh, hey, David.
Sorry.
Um,
So I want to know if SLP can ever go back to 7-8 cents or no, and when is B3 coming?
These are the true
Of
questions, right?
course, straight to the point.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Jiho.
uh, we don't think about like price targets. We think about like, right, like how can we have a more balanced economy?
Okay.
So, right, like, like even with the launch of Ronin, right, like crazy things happened, right? Like in the beginning, like you couldn't deposit your SLP into Binance to actually even sell it, and then that caused the price to spike, right?
Sure.
And in August, right, like our servers went down and nobody could claim their SLP, so then the price spiked, right? So there are a lot of factors that are out of our control. So all we can do is like control the things that we can control, which is making an amazing game and adding, amazing reasons to spend your in-game resources for fun, for pleasure, to upgrade your Axies, what have you. So that's really what we're going to focus on. And yeah, so far, right, like Axie has been an amazing journey for 4 years. It's worked. And why has it worked? Because we've built the product, we built the community. So, that's what we're going to focus on. What was the second part of the question again, Santiago? Sorry.
Sorry, Jiho. The second question.
Yeah. So, what was the second part of the question?
No. So the second question was, when is B3 coming out?
Okay. Yeah. So we're working on B3. Really diligently. I think we've said that within a few months, we plan on doing like a soft launch of it. So yeah, like definitely this year, and shooting for within the next couple of months to kind of show it off to the world. So yeah, so really excited, and that's what we're focused on internally.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for Everrise and Benzinga for doing this space. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm 100% bullish on Axie. And thank you, Jiho, and congrats for everything you have done. Thank you.
Thanks, Santiago.
Awesome. I think that was the last question for the night. We'll give Jiho a little bit of a break. I just wanted to thank our co-host Benzinga, as well as Goxstein Media and the Everrise team for being here. And Jiho, thank you so much for coming and letting us learn so much about Axie and everything that you guys are building. It's truly incredible. This was hands down, honestly, probably one of my favorite episodes of DeFi Talks that we've hosted so far. If anyone's wondering, this Twitter Spaces was recorded, so you guys will always be able to reference back to it on Twitter, as well as through Everrise's YouTube channel and Benzinga's YouTube channel. Before we sign off for the night, Jiho, do you want to let us know where we can learn more about Axie Infinity and learn more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone follow me. I'm trying to hit 500K followers, so follow me.
Follow Jiho, guys.
I think I'm at like 496 or something, which feels surreal. Yeah, follow the people in the chat too. Follow the Cuckoos, follow Cloud White, follow Axie Spike, follow Victory, follow Nick's Tape, follow
Santiago,
JK, Fujin, Chuck Fresco, Austin, Spracky, Hunter,